Do any of these challenges sound familiar? Your organisation has informed employees that there are going to be changes, but there is a lack of clarity about what those changes are going to be. You're having lots of conversations about the need to upskill your employees and get suitable training, but no one's quite sure what that training is, and there's lots of disagreement on what exactly the skills gaps are that exist in your organisation. At some or all levels of your organisation, employees feel concerned, frustrated, confused, angry, or even in denial about upcoming organisational developments. If those statements resonated with you, or your organisation is facing other challenges regarding communication, identifying skills gaps, low morale, or attracting and retaining talent, it's likely that your organisation or team is on the first steps of its journey towards change. The early stages of change management can make or break effective change and will have a big influence on whether your organisation will reach the intended benefits of the change. If your staff tells you that your organisation manages change poorly or has an enduring legacy of failed change, it's likely that this is the hurdle that you're falling at. We might feel that intuitively, as we are at the beginning of our change journey, we want to start by putting a lot of emphasis on what the new future will look like. But that isn't the way that people psychologically process change. What actually happens is we need to start our journey by letting go of the past. Although it might feel counterintuitive, the first stage of change is called endings, and it's about supporting your workforce to say goodbye to the past. You might have heard the song Closing Time by Semisonic that contains the lyrics, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." It's a pretty succinct summary of the first phase of change management. The first mistake your organisation might be prone to be making early on in the change process comes from leadership communication, as often they are psychologically further along the journey of change than the people they're communicating to. As they are often instigating the change, they've had longer to sit with it, discuss it, and process it, so they've already started to move through the process of letting go before they've started communications to their workforce. This can lead to a tendency to tear into the past. They start to tell their employees how rubbish everything was, how nothing ever worked, how everything is going to be better, and then they start trying to sell the staff the benefits of the future vision. From a human psychological perspective, this can create some major barriers. By tearing up the past, your staff feel attacked, as their old ways of working and the identities they've developed that's attached to that comes under fire. It often makes people cling more rigidly to those identities and creates an us and them divide. It's no longer just change, it's a threat. Often you'll see when people are first confronted with the news of change that they experience shock and denial. You'll probably notice a lot of resistance in engaging with the change, as if they're trying to prove that the change is either unreal or unnecessary. It could lead to disbelief and a defensive energy as your employees look for evidence that it isn't true. You might not expect it, but for a short time after receiving this information, you might see an increase in morale, energy, and performance as your staff tries to prove that the change isn't necessary. As your employees begin to accept that there will be some kind of change, they will likely experience feelings of frustration, anger, and blame, either at the organisation or at themselves. This is because they recognise that things are going to be different. It's at that point that you will notice a free fall in morale, energy, and performance as the future becomes unclear and there's a growing panic about the impact that this will have on your employees. The reason change can be so frightening is it has the potential to threaten every level of our hierarchy of needs. After your employees have accepted the change, there's going to be feelings of depression and confusion. They've gone from being unconsciously competent at their job to the opposite end of that scale, where they now recognise that at least in some aspects of their role, they are now consciously incompetent. Human beings don't like that reality, so often it creates a drive to hold on or revert to the existing or former situation. If you want your employees to start the psychological process of change, you need to help them to let go of the past, and for you to do that, you'll need to help them in recognising that they're actually holding on to something. There are many pitfalls that your organisation might fall into at this early stage. Your organisation might be seen as missing or trivialising anything that your employees are losing. Your employees are experiencing genuine distress. You need to meet them where they are at and acknowledge losses big and small with authenticity and empathy. Your organisation needs to be clear about defining the change in specific terms so your employees will know precisely what will be impacted by the change. This is one mistake that I see all too often. An organization announces the change before they understand the change, and as it's not understood, it can't communicate it coherently to staff. Subsequently, this adds to the uncertainty and stress of the situation, as well as making the threat to your employees potentially bigger than it actually is. This tends to happen when an organization is trying to rush the change in order to meet particular timeframes that they've set themselves to have the change implemented by. Ironically, they are likely to extend how long it will take to implement the change and dramatically increase the time it will take for the change to be embedded. Another mistake you might have noticed in your organization is they haven't clearly identified why the current situation can't continue, so it's tough for employees to see what the gains are amongst the losses. The biggest mistake that I see happening over and over at this stage of the change process, and you might have noticed it in your organization as well, is when your organization talks about change, they immediately start to talk about training rather than change management. I say this lovingly as a change manager and a trainer. Organizations spend a ridiculous amount on training at the early stage of the change process when it's unlikely that they'll see the benefits of it. I know why they think that this is the right call. They want to shorten the road and beam to the end of the journey where the change is embedded. They want to do this because they know that the road is long. They know that training is an important aspect of getting people ready for the implementation of change, but early on, your employees just need time to understand the change and to feel supported. That doesn't mean you can't do any change interventions at this point. There are loads of actions that we can take. First of all, inform your workforce about what is going to happen, why it's going to happen, who is going to be impacted, and how and when it's going to happen. Communicate constantly, even if you feel you've already done so. It's difficult to communicate too much. Consult with your employees, start discussions, actively listen to concerns, seek views and ideas, and allow time for thinking. You might want to have a neutral third party to come in to help facilitate the conversation at away days, staff retreats, and events. These interventions provide a supportive environment and help you align your workforce with a future vision. Honour the past. You might want to think of ways that you can celebrate the old reality to help your workforce to feel like it was appreciated and valued. It helps to show respect for everything that's gone before. Plan your change. Think about the objectives that it has, the timescales it has, how it will be measured, and the resources that you have to do it. Particularly think about the change interventions that you're going to have along the process to support your employees through the psychological process of transition. Appoint leaders, managers, teams, and champions. Choose your change agents diligently. You might decide your change agents are going to be anyone who volunteers, and that can be a great pool of people, but make sure they're properly vetted. In the early stages of transition, people might put themselves forward who either consciously or unconsciously are trying to resist the change from within. I call them change saboteurs. However, with the right support, targeting people who you think will be the most resistant and are likely to influence others to resist can be beneficial if you can get them on board with the change. Remember that poorly managed change is likely to send people backwards on their change journey. That's a whistle-stop tour of some of the basic change concepts in the early phases of change. I hope you found it helpful, but I completely appreciate it might feel overwhelming and a bit of a minefield. You might feel like you'd benefit from some support. If you would like to have a no-obligation discovery meeting to discuss your organization's requirements, then go to www.cerebration.space/meeting. You can take or retake our free questionnaire that once it's completed will give you an indication of where your organization or team might be on its change journey and give you tailored content, advice and ideas to support. You can also watch the other videos in this playlist to deepen your understanding of the psychological process of transition and change.